Okay, welcome back. Today we're looking at solving inequalities more, focusing on those multi-step inequalities. So on these, just like we were doing before with equations, we're going to look at simplifying our sides first. So here, if you notice, we have a 3b and a 4b. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put those together, and we get 7b plus 20 is greater than negative 25, or 29. And we can do that because we are combining like terms. Now, because we're solving for 7b, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 20 from both sides. Now we have, and then this would be the subtraction property. And then 7b is greater than negative 49. Now we're going to divide both sides by 7, and then this is the division property. And because we're dividing by a positive number, our inequality sign is going to stay the same, even though we have a negative that is being divided. So b is going to be greater than negative 7. If we go ahead and graph that, it's going to put negative 7 in the middle. It's going to be an open circle, and the arrow is going to go to the right. Alright, why don't you pause the video and try this one out on your own using your knowledge of equations to figure out this problem. So first we're going to go ahead and distribute. So it's going to be negative 8 plus 8x, because we have negative times a negative, is less than or equal to 8. And that's by the distributive property. Now there's another way that you could do this as well, but this is the route that I am going to go. So now, because I'm solving for 8x, I'm going to add 8 to both sides. 8x is going to be less than or equal to 16, and that's the addition property. And now I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 8. And that's going to be the division property. Because I'm dividing by a positive, our sign is going to stay the same, and 16 divided by 8 is 2. So x is less than or equal to 2. So that means we're going to have a closed circle at 2, and the arrow is going to go to the left. So now that we have another one with the distributive property, I'm going to show another way that we could approach this. Instead of distributing right away, since it's 5 times the quantity, I could actually divide both sides by the negative 5, and then this would be the division property. The 5's will cancel out, and we're going to be left with 2 plus x. Now here's 15 divided by negative 5, which is negative 3. But because I divided both sides by a negative, I'm going to go ahead and flip that sign around. So now it's greater than or equal to. Now I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides according to the subtraction property. And then x is going to be greater than or equal to negative 5. I'll go ahead and graph that. Here's our negative 5. Once again, it's going to be a closed circle, and our arrow is going to go to the right. Alright, now let's look at an example with fractions. If you remember from when we were working with equations, we can still work with fractions, or we can multiply everything by the common denominator. In this case, it would be 6. Once we do that, we can simplify our fractions, because 2/3 of 6 is going to be 4f, and then half of 6 would be 3, and then 1/3 of 6 is going to be 2. And now we're simply dealing with whole numbers, and it's going to be the same answer. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3 from both sides. So we have 4f is greater than negative 1. Divide both sides by 4, and f is going to be greater than negative 1/4. Now we're just going to leave that as a fraction. So here at negative 1/4, I'm going to have an open circle. F is greater, so it's going to go to the right. Now let's look at a real-life application. So here, to rent a certain vehicle, Rent-A-Ride charges $55 per day with unlimited miles. Meanwhile, the cost of renting a similar vehicle that We Got Wheels is $38 per day, but they charge you 20 cents per mile. For what number of miles is the cost at Rent-A-Ride less than the cost of We Got Wheels? So if you look at the bottom here, they have that it's $55, has to be less than what it would pay at We've Got Wheels, which would be the 38 plus the 20 cents per mile. So if we went and solved that, so we had 55 is less than 38 plus 20 cents per mile. First we would subtract the 38 because we have to figure out how many miles we have to make up, or how many dollars we have to make up. So if we do that, if we do our 55 minus 38, we get a value of 17. So 17 has to be less than our 20 cents per mile. So if I divide both sides by the 20 cents, I get that at the number of miles would be 85 has to be less than the number of miles that you drive. So if your number of miles is more than 85, then the cost at Rent-A-Ride would be less. Why don't you go ahead and try this problem out on your own and see how you do, and if you have questions, then you can ask me. The average of Jim's 2 test scores must be at least 90 to make an A in the class. Jim got a 95 in his first test. What grade can Jim get on his second test to make an A in the class? And we're going to let X represent the number of test scores needed, represent the test score needed, and the average score is the sum of each score divided by 2. So here, he got 95, so we have 95 plus his second X test score divided by 2 has to be greater than or equal to 90. So here, if we work backwards, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So 95 plus X has to be greater than or equal to 180. And then I would subtract 95 from both sides. And if I take 180 and I subtract the 95, his score would have to be greater than or equal to 85 on his second test in order to maintain his A.